And while we're waiting, let me give you some logistical information. So for those joining us from Arab countries or for the Arab-speaking audience in general who want to listen to the interpretations, please use the interpretation button at the bottom of your window from the three dots at the very right bottom. للمشاهدين اللي مشاركينا من الدول العربية ممكن تستعملوا خدمة الترجمة باللغة العربية من خلال الثلاث نقاط الموجودة في أسفل الشاشة وتقدروا تسمعوا للمحادثة كلها للسيمينار كله باللغة العربية. So once again, thank you everybody. We will start in a few seconds. Also, for everyone, you can leave your questions at any time during the conversation through the Q&A function, also at the bottom of your screen. And I will make sure I will deliver this to our guest today, Yasmine. And I'm sure you will enjoy this conversation very much. I've been looking forward to it. Okay, let's start. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. This is Dalia Ziada, ISGAP's Research Fellow and Washington, D.C. Coordinator. Welcome to the 8th session of the Arabic Seminar Series, organized by ISGAP, the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. In this seminar series, we explore one of the most complex and unresolved questions in the Middle East: why peace remains unattainable, and how deeply rooted ideological barriers continue to hinder coexistence, stability, and regional cooperation among the region's diverse and dynamic societies. Today, we turn to one of the most influential yet often overlooked patterns in the region: the victimhood paradigm, or المظلومية, as we say in Arabic. While rooted in real historical experiences such as colonialism and conflict, these narratives have over time evolved into a broader mindset that can discourage self-reflection, shift responsibility outward, and complicate reform and coexistence. This session examines how societies can acknowledge legitimate grievances without becoming defined by them. I think this is something we need very much in the region, in the Middle East in general. And why moving beyond a culture of victimhood may be essential for building more open, accountable, and cooperative political systems. Of course, I cannot think of anyone who can discuss this better than my dear friend Yasmine Mohammed. Yasmine is a Canadian Arab human rights activist, author, and educator known for advocating for women's rights and freedom of thought. Her family background, part of the family comes from Egypt, part of the family comes from Gaza. Yes, Gaza, which was the center point of most of the conflicts that defined the region in the past decades, in the past few decades. Yasmine, given this background, would naturally make her an extremist, or maybe a terrorist even. But on the contrary, she got out of this, she popped out of this ideological box, and she's now one of the strongest fighters against radicalism, Islamism, and all forms of extremism. Yasmine founded Free Hearts, Free Minds, an organization that she started a few years ago to empower other people to be just like her, to think with open mind and open heart. And she's also the co-founder of the Clarity Coalition. a group of liberal people from all over the world who believe in freedom of religion, freedom of thought. Yasmine hosts several podcasts that empower liberal voices from around the world to fight this important battle to save Western democratic values. Yasmine is also the author of the memoir Unveiled: How Western Liberals Empower Radical Islam. And actually, it's a great book. I would encourage everyone to read, especially if you are interested in women's rights and understanding how women really suffer in our region on so many levels. Welcome, Yasmine. So happy to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Delia. It's my absolute pleasure to be here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I think it's a fascinating topic. And like you said, it's a very important one and one that is often overlooked. So I'm really looking forward to delving into this topic with you today.
Amazing. So let's start by making definitions. Let's explain what we mean exactly by Mazlumiyya, the victimhood paradigm, which has been a powerful narrative shaping our political and cultural discourse in many, many parts in the Middle East. So, from your perspective, what is Mazlumiyya? How this mindset of victimhood developed over time in the region, and why it remains so influential until today?
Well, I think to start off, I'm going to, you know, mention that unfortunately, one of the main pillars of fascism is this victimhood complex. When you see yourself as the victim in a scenario, it fills you with this kind of righteous rage that will allow you to justify any kind of radicalization, justify the actions that you do because you feel like, well, I am just a victim in this scenario, so I'm fighting back. Um, it is really very, very frustrating for me, especially with having family from Gaza, to be seeing how not only counterproductive, but how toxic this thought process is. Because you are almost, condemning yourself to a life of constantly being subordinate. You have a we're all victims. There's nobody here that's not a victim. You talked about women in the Muslim world. I mean, we have a lot of reasons to just be victims and to lie down and say, somebody needs to come save us, somebody needs to come take care of us, there needs to be justice. But we're grown-ups and we understand that in this world it doesn't work that way. There isn't fairness and justice. Nobody's going to come and take care of us. Nobody's going to come and fix it. We have to empower ourselves. Yes, of course it's hard. It's sad. It's frustrating. It's difficult. All of those things, but it's the only choice we have. We can lie down and say we're the victims, support us, take care of us, fix us, make it better for us, and wait for something to do that. And even if something were to do that, you're still the subordinate, you're still the dependent. So it's like that paradigm switch of turning your feeling like you're empowered and that you have control over your life, power over your destiny, that you can, uplift yourself, progress your community. This is something that it's really frustratingly foreign in this area of the world. And so it really, I feel it's like the crux of the matter. I really feel like it really is the key. I often make the comparison between Israel and Gaza. They had the same amount, like, Israel had money coming in from, international places. Gaza had money coming in from international places. Both of them have histories of being victims and have grievances. Israelis built their nation up. They're, leading the world in technology and in medicine and in, security, et cetera, et cetera. The Gazans built tunnels with their money.
Right. Yeah.
And it's because one was focusing on the future and progress and a better world. Yes, of course it's terrible. It's terrible that they got kicked out of Egypt and Syria and Lebanon. It's terrible, of course, that the Holocaust happened. All of these things are terrible. But are they going to sit there and just be victims? Or are they going to start digging into the earth and start, planting trees and start trying to create, food and industry for all of these people that are in their country?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's really sad that we didn't choose to do that. We said instead, we're going to dig into the earth and create tunnels because we are the victims and we have to fight back against this bad guy. Because, of course, that's the key. When you're a victim, there has to be the scapegoat. Who am I going to blame? Right?
Mm.
Who's going to be the one who is the reason for all of my problems? Because, of course, I'm not going to take personal responsibility. There's no way I'm going to look within and say, what can I do at this point? No, you have to look out and blame the bad guy, blame the evil, right? And so, of course, it's Yahud, Kuffar, it's Jews, it's non-Muslims, it's somebody, it's the Americans. You have to find someone else to blame rather than look within.
Yeah, that's a great way to start. But before we look at the regional level, I want to speak about the personal level because you yourself, Yasmin, I mean, you could be one of the people who could easily say, and you've seen a lot in your life, and you can just live in this victimhood paradigm and just let the world burn around you and even contribute to burning the world
Mm-hmm.
around you.
Mm-hmm.
But you took the opposite way. How
Mm-hmm.
how did you do that on a very personal level, especially coming from this culture, which I know very well, that
Yeah.
honors this idea of victimhood and actually emphasizes it and likes it. So how did you get over it on the very, very personal level?
So before I talk about myself, I have to talk about my mom a little bit so that you can see kind of the context of where I came from and how this happened. So my mom grew up extremely privileged in Egypt. Her family, she's related to Mohammed Naguib, the very first president of Egypt. I know he didn't last there for very long, but she came from that background of very, very privileged, right? They had this big villa, they had somebody to cook, somebody to clean, somebody to do the laundry, and she was the first child, right? So she was very, very spoiled, very, very privileged. And then, of course, the regime change, as happens in the Middle East, when the regime change happens, the regime before, of course, is, her father had to go to Saudi Arabia, her uncle was under house arrest, and everything got lost. And they moved from this big, beautiful villa to a sha'a, one apartment with 7 children at this point, and she's at this point she's almost going to university, so that her whole life was really shattered. And when we talk about the victimhood complex, my mom really had this. I used to call her the persecuted princess. The persecuted princess. I'm actually impressed with myself as a child that I came up with this terminology, but really it was to show that she is simultaneously superior to everybody but also the victim. Somehow she found herself in that space and it caused no cognitive dissonance for her. She was just somehow comfortable with these two identities, both superior and the victim, persecuted princess. And I really thought it was just her. I didn't realize this is a society wide issue, right? And the thing with my mom is her life followed the same trajectory as, if you look at the Muslim Brotherhood, for example, and how they started to gain prominence, around the 80s. My mom was one of those women. She didn't wear hijab when she was growing up. She wore mini skirts, in fact. She went to a Christian school. Everything was, secular, open, and it was like the religious people were in the villages, that's where you would see the hijab, that's where you would see people reading, praying 5 times a day, and et cetera, et cetera. For her it was like, oh, so gauche. But of course she discovered Sayyid Qutb, and he also has the same victimhood grievance complex, And the way that she gravitated towards him makes so much sense now when I look back, hindsight being 2020, because my mom got married to my dad. So my dad, as you mentioned, is from Gaza, and he was going to university at the time when Gaza was under Egyptian authority. So he was able to go to university for free. So the two of them went to university together, got married, moved to San Francisco in America. So now it's late 60s, early 70s. Peace, love, and hippie era. Everybody's like free love. My father loved this. He's like, yes, this is great. And my mother, of course, hated it. And she blamed all of these American women. It's the infidels. They ruined my marriage. They ruined my life. And so you can see how clearly her and Sayed Qutb would be aligned in their thinking, right? And so because America's so horrible, the kuffar, the non-Muslims are so horrible, these heathens, these infidels, etc., what's the answer? Islam huwa al-hal. Islam is the answer. And so she just really jumped on this Islamist bandwagon like you would not believe. And of course, this was helped by the fact that she became the second wife to a man who was an Islamist from Egypt as well. He was from Alexandria, she was from Cairo. But they were both following the same trajectory. As you can see now, it's like a historical trajectory. They were just on that path. And she started to go to Al Azhar University, got her master's degree in Sharia in Islamic studies. She became the head of the Islamic studies at the Islamic department in our school, in the Islamic school. And I watched her become radicalized. I watched her go from somebody who used to listen to music and, just live like a normal life to somebody who, you know, Egypt is, or sorry, music is from the devil, Mazmur shaitan, and suddenly everything was you have to pray and memorize Quran, and her hijab just kept on getting like longer and longer and darker, and she went from wearing skirts to wearing abaya, and from wearing a small hijab to like the ones that go like straight down like a tent, and it was like I was watching it happen in real time. And then, of course, at one point, Islamists aren't good enough. They're not Muslim enough. They're not following the way of the companions of the Prophet enough. So it was all about forget Islamists. They're not even they wear beards or sorry, they don't wear the big beards, and they try to be diplomatic. Now she's interested in jihadis. And that's why I ended up getting forced into a marriage with an Al-Qaeda member, an Al-Qaeda terrorist, when I was 19. Because by that point in her life, she felt like this is the real thing now. And so growing up in all of that, it was so clear to me how toxic this was. Of course, I was going with her because she's my mother and I love her and I want nothing more than for her to be pleased with me. I want to go to heaven. And in Islam, it teaches that heaven is at the feet of your mother. And so I knew that if I didn't have her blessing, I was never going to go to heaven. So, of course, I married this man. I wore the niqab. I allowed, all the rapes and the beating and everything to happen. I mean, I say I allowed, but the truth is I was, that this was the coercion that was all around me, not just from him and from the religion, but from my mom. I really wanted her to love me. I wanted her to be pleased with me. And, I accepted all of that and I lived that life, and I wanted to be the good girl. And it wasn't until I had my daughter and they talked about taking her to Egypt to get FGM done on her. That's the moment when I realized I have to get out of here. I have to get out of this world because there's no way I'm gonna let my daughter be mutilated like that. And so that started my path out of all of that. But Delia, I just want to say, even though you physically walk away from these things, it's like it's the water that nourished the roots in your body, you know? Like these ways of thinking are the blueprints that are in your mind. So it's a big, very difficult process, as you know, you're pushing against a tsunami. You're like there's a school of fish and everybody's moving in one direction, and you know this exactly, Delia, for sure. You feel this in your heart that you're the one fish that's like, wait, why aren't we going this? Well, this doesn't make any sense, you know. And that's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous to do that. So it was, you know, I'm preaching to the choir here when I tell you how difficult it was
Oh
to step
no,
away.
but it's
Yeah,
your, oh my God. Every time I listen to your story, Yasmin, I feel like I'm listening to it for the first time in the way how it affects me.
yeah,
Because what you're saying is something we also, I believe, not
yeah,
only in Egypt, but in many Arab countries. And explaining the way you explained is how our societies turn it from being secular, open societies into extremist ones on the hands of radical Islamist groups and on the hands of even political Islamists like the Muslim Brotherhood and so, and the people just followed them blindly, believing that they are the answers for their all their problems.
yeah.
I remember at one point also in Egypt, actually people would go to the mosque to ask about things like psychological problems, medical problems, and such issues, to ask the imam about these things rather than going to the hospital or going to see a therapist or something. So it's really interesting how our society is really. I mean, also when you were speaking about your mom, my mom too. Like she never wore hijab, and then at one moment, she decided like she will wear it, and all of us will follow. You know, it's just an order. So it's amazing. I mean, this story. But now you came, and I know, of course, it's not easy. It's like feeling trapped into this forever, and you just don't know how to get out of it. But you did not only empower yourself out of this rut, you also empowered other people, Yasmin. You now like lead two organizations. The Clarity Coalition is one of them, and the Free Minds, Free Hearts, Free Minds is
That's
the
right.
other one. So how did you use this, and also your podcasts and the other things you do to empower other people around you? And was it helpful? Like, did it really have an effect, an impact in making people feel less like victims and feel empowered to change their realities and the societies they live in?
Yeah, absolutely. So we grew up in societies that basically told us, you know, it's maktub. Everything is written, everything is decided, everything is going to be, everything that's going to happen, Allah already planned it. You know what I mean? Like you are, it creates in every individual the sense of learned helplessness. So in my book, I describe that Surah Al-Fil chapter. I have a chapter in here called the elephant, just like in the Quran. And in that chapter, I talk about how a baby elephant, what they would do in a circus or something, is they would attach this baby elephant with a rope to a very big, heavy thing, a block of cement, whatever it is. So the baby elephant would pull and pull and pull and pull, and his leg would get torn and bleeding. And eventually, because the elephant never forgets, it stops pulling. This is why you can see a big, huge, massive, I don't know how many tons elephant and a rope around its leg, and it's tied to like a small nail in the ground. How is this elephant? Of course, it can move that nail, it can move the whole tent, it can move trucks if it wanted to, but it believes there's no point. Halas, I tried, it didn't work, I gave up, and now it has this sense of learned helplessness that it doesn't even think to pull its leg because there's a rope on my leg, so there's nowhere I can go. I connected to that story so much because that was me. That's all of us, right? We end up with this sense of learned helplessness. And to start to think of yourself as empowered and having control over your life just through your mind before even doing anything physically, before overcoming any obstacles, you have to break these chains that were put in here, right? And for us as girls, this was huge. This is massive, right? We're constantly being told girls are less than men. Girls shouldn't be leaders. What do you so lower your voice, right? Don't laugh so loud. You're a girl. Inti bint, inti bint, inti bint. I cannot tell you how often I've heard, right? Shame, you're a girl. Don't do that. Don't sit like that. Don't talk like that. Don't move like that. Just shut your mouth because your voice is aura, your voice is shameful. Shut your mouth, serve a man, cook for him, clean for him, make babies. That's a good girl. And if you're not going to do that, then you're shameful, you're horrible. You know that this is something that is it's a humiliation for the whole family, right? This is the honor of everybody is ruined because you won't just be quiet. And so you're taught to be helpless. You're taught that you are not in control of your own life. And it that I'm going to say it very quickly and easily like this, but it's not at all. It's a very, very big, huge paradigm shift to start to think of yourself as not helpless, as somebody who actually has control over their life, who can decide to do things and take the steps to reach your goals and to achieve things and to do really hard things, not to sit back and wait and hope that somebody is going to come and do it for you or give it to you, or, because that's kind of how we were raised, right? Like, especially as girls, we don't get educated and get a job and go get our own house. No, 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 no. A man will come bring us the shubka and then give us the apartment. Like, a man will provide all of these things for us, right? And so to start to think of yourself as somebody who can overcome all of these obstacles, both physical and mental, that are all around you, and that you can start to have control over your own life, this was a very, very, very long, difficult, huge, life-changing message for me to be able to understand. And that is the number one message that I would pass on to people at Free Hearts, Free Minds. Like, I wanted them to understand nobody's coming to save you. Nobody is coming to, it's very sad, but there's no justice. There's no fairness. There's no one to look to say, throw them in hell. You know what I mean? Because they did this to me. No, it's not going to happen. These people that hurt you are maybe going to go on to be successful, and it's going to hurt. It's going to make you, it's going to feel like this is so unfair. This shouldn't happen. Or nobody believes you that this happened to you, and everybody is friends and loving this person who persecuted you. It's going to happen. But it's like accepting, it's a very grown up thing. You have to accept responsibility. We don't live like this patriarchal structure really keeps you down like a dependent, like somebody like Baba's going to come and fix this. Somebody's going to come and fix this. Nobody's coming. You have to fix it yourself. And that was such a big lesson for me, and one of growth, and one that I pass on. And it's possible. I just talked about Israelis doing that. Look at Black people in the United States going from being slaves to, having a Black president. Like, all of it really is. We have so many examples of people that have gone from zero to hero, right? Like, it is a possibility, but you have to believe it first. You have to believe that you are worthy. You have to believe that you are deserving. And you have to believe in yourself. You have to trust in yourself and in your own abilities. And it, that at that point, that's when you have the power.
Yeah, wow, this is so inspiring, Yasmin. So, Let's take it to the larger level. Let's zoom out and look at how this was applied in our region outside the personal to shape politics in the region
Yeah.
today. So, one of the main conflicts in the region, as you know, is the Israeli Palestinian conflict. And it has long been shaped with this idea of Palestinians being the victims of this conflict. And as they are the victims, they have the right to practice violent resistance to the extent that we can see some mothers giving away their children to be martyrs in the ranks
Yeah.
of Hamas and other terrorist organizations. So, can you explain to us how this happened, how this mindset was formed, and how it was possible uh, to I mean to shape our politics on a regional level? It's not only about, like, the Israelis and Palestinians only fighting with each other, and it's something very limited on a very limited scope of land or scope of politics, but it's shaping politics even in Western countries now. So how did we go from victimhood to violent resistance to supporting terrorism under this flag of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
Yeah, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict it really is sort of like the nucleus of this whole Islamist issue that we're talking about, right? That grievance is the one that they can always point to say, "Ihna mazlumin," like we are the victims, right? They took our land from us, and it's on a larger scale. It's like, oh, we lost, the Ottoman Empire. We want to get the Andalusia back again. Like it's the golden age of Islam. Like everything is about we have to go back to the way that it was, or we want this, utopian, global caliphate, basically. And the fact that this land that they believed was theirs, even though they were always sharing it with indigenous Jewish people, makes them feel like they have, like, it's like a how dare they. You know what I mean? There really is a sense of that, because we cannot, we're not going to brush by the anti-Semitism in the Arab and Muslim world and how they look down on Jewish people. So like the air you breathe is such a common way of looking at Jewish people. So these people that they believe are beneath them have the audacity to reclaim back their homeland is like too much. You know what I mean? It's too much for their egos. So this is a really big issue. And it's used all the time to radicalize, as you mentioned, not just throughout the Middle East, but now in the West as well. Um, I feel like Arabs have always had a problem with taking responsibility. Whether, even if you just look at our past too, when we talk about the Arab slave trade, what do they tell you? No, 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 but the slaves liked it. They were happy. They, right? These are the things they tell you. So it's like you talk about, Khaybar and how they killed off a whole tribe of hundreds of Jewish people, like 700, 800, I don't know how many hundreds of Jewish people. They killed the chief, they killed all the men. And then they say, then the princess, who her father and her husband and everybody who was killed on that day, they say, no, 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 she fell in love with Sayyidina Muhammad. It's a love story, about Safiya. Like they twist, they never take responsibility. Look at a situation. We have the opposite problem in the West, right? We have this self-flagellation. We're more like the Shia over here. But the Arab history has no reconciliation, has no sense of introspection. It's all we are the conquerors. I found it's an interesting thing too, even about the Arabic language. I don't know if this is true for all Arabics, but this is true for Egyptian Arabic. We don't even take responsibility in our everyday language. Like if I dropped a plate, I would say "طبق وقع." The plate fell. I don't say "أنا وقعت الطبق." I dropped the plate. No, 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 no. لا الطبق وقع. وقع. Like we
Wow,
just say it fell. The
that's
plate fell.
true. That's
Yeah,
very correct.
yeah. We
Wow,
don't say
yeah.
I dropped the plate. And so it's like we just don't have. Has your mother ever apologized to you? Of course not. You don't apologize. Like a mother apologizes to your kid. Possible, because you don't take responsibility for your actions. We don't do that. It's just not part of the culture. And so when you expand on that, and you look at it like society wide, now why would they take responsibility? They have never been uh, trained to do that. It's always been blame somebody else's fault, or oh, that's nasib. That's the way it is. It's fate. It happened like that. But there's no taking responsibility. You know how frustrating it is for me to be speaking to a Muslim person sometimes and saying, look at the Islamic regime of Iran. Look at the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. Look at how women are treated all over the Islamic world. And can you see any lines of connection here? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's their culture. Okay, but they're talking specifically like Sharia. No, it's just their culture. No responsibility. No, at any point do they say, if we talk about FGM in Egypt, it's like almost 90% of girls, even though it's criminalized, people are willing to break the law in order to mutilate their daughters. And we say this is a problem, and they say, with Christians too, with others too. Okay, who cares? Two wrongs don't make a right. Don't you want to progress your own communities, progress your own people? But if you're constantly deflecting and not acknowledging the problem, I mean, it's quite ironic that we have a saying in English that says denial isn't just a river in Egypt. If you have this denial of the problem, how will you ever fix it? Right? If you don't take responsibility for the problem in front of you, how will things ever get better? They won't. And so you have a choice right now. You can sit there and you can be angry at, this person or that person or the Jews or the non-Muslims or fulan, or you can get excited about your future. You can start to think about how can we be better? What can we do? Like enough with the grievances. It's not getting us anywhere, you know?
Exactly. And it's only empowering terrorism as well, which actually
Yes.
takes me to the question of, okay, while practicing this victimhood and identifying themselves as victims all the time, I mean, speaking about not only the Palestinians, but on the Arab side of things in the Middle East. The majority of Arabs, of course, not all Arabs. We have great examples like the United Arab Emirates, for example,
Hmm.
broke out of this paradigm in a very, very impressive way. Bahrain is on the way to do that too, slowly but surely, which is amazing. I mean, I see these
Yeah,
are amazing examples that prove that Arabs can be something else
of
other than
course.
victims.
Hmm.
So this is amazing. But at the same time, when we look at that, they also, the Arabs in their majority of Arabs deny things like the Holocaust
Yeah.
and denied October 7 when October
Hmm.
7 attacks happened by Hamas and denied, despite being very well documented, they openly denied it and also denied or right now denied the practices of anti-Semitism that are happening everywhere. So, from your perspective, Yasmin, and given of your knowledge of the region and your personal experiences too, is why this denial of why there is always a rejection among Arabs that the Jewish people too can be victims also to certain
Yes.
circumstances, and they have been like the Holocaust, October 7,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
anti-Semitism that's practiced everywhere now. Why we
Hmm.
insist on denying these, and
Hmm.
and and to what end? Like, what we want to achieve by this denial, and how we fix that as people who understand this very well.
Mhm. Well, if the equation is oppressor oppressed, and we are the oppressed, we are the victims, there must be an oppressor. So we cannot acknowledge that these oppressors are also human beings and they also have a difficult history, and there's also victimhood involved, because that ruins the whole equation, right? It's black and white. You have to have good guy, bad guy. And so they have to, of course, deny these things. They'll deny the Holocaust. They'll deny that. They'll say Jewish people left all of these nations throughout the Middle East on their own. They wanted to go, right? Yeah, they were happy to leave. They wanted to go to Israel. They make, historical revisionism, just like they were doing with Safaia. Like, this is what they do. Or with the slave trade in the Arab world, they turn it into a story of where they are not the oppressors, right? They are the victims. Always they are the victims in the scenario, and the Jews have to be the oppressors. So if they acknowledge the Holocaust, if they acknowledge the Farhud in Iraq, if they acknowledge how, Jewish Egyptians were threatened with imprisonment if they didn't leave, if they acknowledge all of these things, that's acknowledging that Jewish people were victimized. And that's not possible, because the equation says that the Jewish people are the oppressors. And so they have to keep the equation the way it is. And how am I going to get attention and pity and money for being the oppressed if you're going to acknowledge that these guys are also have grievances within their history? No, no, no. You have to just look at me, pay attention to me, give me all of your pity, give me all of your money, give me all of your attention, because I'm the oppressed one. And you know what's really interesting is now we've got this Iran war happening. I saw a Black American woman, she's very popular, millionaire, talking about how the women in America are oppressed, marginally different than the women of Iran. Okay? And that's because
What? What?
because they
Really?
are the same
She knows
thing. She's a
nothing. She
black
knows
woman.
nothing.
Of
Oh my
course not.
God.
But if her, because people on the left here in the United States and Canada and in the West, it's all about grievance. It's all about they are the victims. They are the oppressed, right? They've got the whole, that's the whole structure of that is based on who is the bigger victim, who is more oppressed, right? You have to look at skin color, you have to look at gender, you have to look at this, da, da, da. Everybody wants to be more oppressed than their neighbor. So because even though she's a successful woman, she's a Black American woman speaking in a microphone, like you have power more than most people, you have money more than most people, but she has to be the victim, right? Like, don't look at the reality of the situation. Just make sure I'm always the victim. So the fact that there's like this conversation talking about the women of Iran and the people of Iran and how they're fighting back against this regime, and how there's like this revolution, it's like, no, 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 no. We're the victims. And I saw this before too. Like, I could go on. I've seen this so many times. I had Dolly Parton's sister blocked me on Twitter because she was talking about the Christian Taliban in America, and she's saying, it's even worse than the women of Afghanistan. Why do you have to do that? Why? Like, they want to be victims so badly. They will deny all of the reality, deny the people who are actually victims, to keep themselves in this noble position of being the victim. They love it there.
Absolutely.
It's their favorite place to be, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
it's, I don't know, they just feel such um uh, righteousness in being the victim. And if they're going to be the victim, then absolutely nobody else can be acknowledged as the victim. In fact, the others need to be acknowledged as the oppressors.
It's
And
a
I
good
think,
place to be naturally, because you don't need to do anything other
yeah,
than complaining, It's just complain, and everyone like come and complain with you, which is
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah.
But now let's go to the questions from the audience. There are very, very interesting ones here, but I will start with the one that's asking about current situation in the Middle East. So, what you make of what's happening right now? Iran is I don't know if it is collapsing or not, or with the Iranian regime. What this means for the future of the region? Do you support this war? Do you think it should continue further? Does it actually pave the way for peace in the Middle East between Arabs and Israelis, let's say? So
Hmm.
what give us like your view?
So there's no such thing as a happy, clean, nice war, right? The war is a horrible thing. It's always going to be a horrible thing. And nobody wants a war to happen, but sometimes the evil that is happening is so huge and so, so existential that you have to fight back. And that's what happened in Iran. The people of Iran for 47 years have been in the streets screaming and fighting and losing their lives, fighting against this regime. And this regime is not only a threat to the Iranian people. Of course, the Iranian people are first and foremost, but they are a threat to the planet. They are the funders of the terrorism that's happening all over the Middle East. That we have a long history in the United States, all the way back to taking American hostages. There's Iran and America, Iran and Israel, Iran and everywhere in the Middle East. This is a there's I don't even know if I can think of a word to fully describe how monstrous and barbaric this regime has been. And the fact today that you can see Qatar, Qatar,
Oh yeah, yeah, I know. Unbelievable. I know.
unbelievable, right? Qatar is, expelling their Iranian ambassadors. You have Saudi Arabia, you have Jordan, you have all of Arab countries, Muslim countries against Iran. Of course, Syria and Lebanon, they've been funding the terrorists in all of these people's countries and all of these people's homes for so long.
Actually,
They're,
to this point, Yasmin, before you proceed, sorry for interrupting, but this morning I saw a video for the Saudi foreign minister just detailing how has always, the Iranian regime has always been a threat to
yes,
Arab and Muslim majority countries. And
yes,
and he just kept detailing it one by one. They never spoke like this before. I mean, Arab leaders never spoke like this before. So does
no.
this mean we are about to achieve peace in the Middle East, or it's only hate to Iran?
Well, sometimes things have to get worse before they can get better. I don't think we're going to see peace in the Middle East in our lifetime, but I think this was a very important domino. So, at the beginning of this conversation, we talked about how we saw the trajectory of, Islamists and Islamism growing. That started with the Islamic regime of Iran. They were the ones who started this whole thing. And so they will end it now too. When we end them, it will end this. I feel like it's the first domino that has to fall to, align things back again. Because the Islamic world was in progress. The Arab world, we were progressing, and we regressed over these decades. And so I really feel like this Islamic regime it had to go. It has to go. It's not pretty. Of course, it's not pretty. It was never pretty when they were killing tens of thousands of people per day for protesting. It hasn't been pretty for the past 47 years. And so, of course, it's not pretty now. But it had to happen. It had to happen. And I don't know what's going to happen now. We've got the Strait of Hormuz, we've got our oil prices going through the roof, we've got China, we've got Russia. All of these things are. I don't know how this is going to turn out, but that needed to happen. And it's like now we have to move forward from this point forward. It is the best time in history. It is the best time in the history of the Islamic regime of Iran to have done this. They were at their lowest point, and to see the Arab world supporting America and Israel right now is, I'm grateful to be alive to see this. You know, people are understanding now, they're getting it. This old tribalism and alliances with people because they are from your same ummah, they're your same religion or same, this is shifting. People are starting to realize now, no, it's about stability of my country. It's about progress of my people. They've shifted, I think, from that sense that we've been talking about this whole conversation of victimhood to taking responsibility. You mentioned in the beginning of this conversation about taking responsibility, and that is going to lead us to coexistence. You know what I mean? If you have to take responsibility first, then we can coexist with others in the world, not just Israelis, but all the other countries, all the other people have an understanding that this world does not belong to you. There's no such thing as a global caliphate. This superiority complex that you have here you need to forget that whole idea. You're sharing this planet with lots of other people, with lots of different ways of thinking and feeling and being, and we have to coexist. And so each one of us has to be, live and let live and take responsibility for our own actions. These are very basic concepts, but it's still very, unfortunately, these are new ideas in some parts of the world. They really believe that they are entitled to this whole planet. But
Sadly.
when they start to understand, like you've just mentioned with the UAE and Bahrain, etc., like, no, we are a piece of this puzzle and we're all working together and it's for our best interest. Even countries like Jordan, who they're so anti-Semitic, but in the back rooms,
They
they're
are, yeah, they are
they're
very
getting
different when you speak with them privately, very, very different mindset than what they project in public, actually. That's very
exactly.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there is a very good question here, and maybe it also ends with some hope. It's from a rabbi from the UK who says he would be very happy to be involved in constructive dialogue between Muslims and Jews, which he feels very important, which is awesome, and is asking a question about the West Bank, saying that how do you see the situation in the West Bank? Sometimes I hear complaints from people saying that Palestinians in the West Bank have unequal rights. Does that imply that people feel that all the Palestinians in the West Bank should become full Israeli citizens? Otherwise, what is the solution? Do you have an answer to that?
Even if you have somebody living in the West Bank who believes in peace and coexistence, who maybe, works with Israelis and has, sometimes you have Palestinians and Israelis get married and like there's always, they're neighbors, right? Even ones that believe in coexistence and peace and et cetera, they are victims of the terrorists, like
Right. Yeah.
because of what happened on October 7th, that of course affected the Palestinians in the West Bank, even though they weren't perpetrators of it. But of course, the Israelis have to keep themselves protected. Suddenly, you've got people stabbing people in coffee shops, and you have to make sure that your people are protected. After October 7th, especially, like the Israeli people are there in active trauma. They're actively bleeding. You know what I mean? Like they're very nervous, and they want to protect their country and their people. And so, of course, that's going to translate into things being much harder for people in the West Bank. It's much more difficult for them to live now with, the checkpoints and the this and the that. And it's like it's a sad situation, but it's an understandable one. It's like the same
Yes.
thing that happened with the Intifadas. When you I don't know, you're going to blow up a bus or blow up a pizza parlor and then you expect that there's not going to be any response? Like, of course they have to protect their people. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean that they went into Palestine and started, killing them back again. You know what I mean? They didn't start blowing up restaurants in the West Bank or in Gaza, but they set up checkpoints and they set up ways to protect their people, and they made it difficult for goods to go in and out because they have to make sure. I mean, it's not that they were making it difficult on purpose. It's because they needed to make sure that there's no things in there that are going to be used to kill us.
Yes.
Like, this
Yeah.
is common sense. But of course it ends up being a very sad, difficult situation. But it's important to take a step back and to look at, how did this happen? How did this happen? How did we get here? You know, it's like now when people are pointing to Iran and they're saying, "Oh, the Americans did this." It's like, no, but how did this happen? How did this start? You know what I mean? You look at Israel and they're saying, "Oh, the Israelis did this." It's like, yeah, but who started October 7th? You know what I mean? Like, take a step back and take some responsibility for what's going on here. You can't blame the people for, trying to protect themselves.
Yeah.
And they're not doing it in terrorist ways. That's the important thing here. They're not getting up with some grievance and saying, "Oh, we have the right now to go and, you know, just kill families of Palestinians in their homes and take babies as hostages." Like, no, they're not the ones doing that.
Right. Right.
Um, so yeah, there was a lot of questions, a lot of things in that question. The conversations between Israelis and Muslims, I think there was a question there about Jews and Arabs or something. I can't remember, but those conversations are happening all the time, and they've been happening for decades. And there's a lot of really, there's so much closeness between the two people. This is the thing. Like, my father grew up in Gaza when Israelis were coming and going. They'd come
Right.
to
Yeah.
Gaza and
Before
they,
Gaza was occupied by
oh,
Hamas later on.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Before the Yasser Arafat grievance stuff happened, because he's the one who started this, right? Israelis are coming and going, or they were buying fish. My grandmother had Israeli friends that my dad knew his whole life. Like, this was the way it was. The Jews and Arabs are actually, their cultures are very similar because they're both indigenous to the same land.
Exactly.
And so there's so much about their cultures that are very similar. And it's like, if you just take a step back past all of this political, forcing people to see each other as the enemy, good guy, bad guy, black, white, then they'll start to realize, like, oh, we're very similar, and our cultures are quite aligned, and we can coexist very comfortably together.
Yeah, we all belong to the same human family. So indeed, yeah. So Yasmin, to conclude, I want to always like to leave people with a message of hope. So if you're gonna give us a message of hope in conclusion of that, maybe related to the surge in anti-Semitism worldwide, what should we expect in the region next? What you say? What's your message of hope to the audience today?
Well, I do feel hopeful. I really do. It was the anti-Semitism that has been brewing throughout the West was undercover. It was quiet. It was hidden. It was under rocks. And people were living their lives thinking, "Oh, anti-Semitism, that's a thing of the past. Don't worry about it. It's not our problem. This is, hashtag never forget." And what we now refer to as October 8th Jews are people who realize, like, oh my God, my grandmother and my mother and my aunts, like, when telling their stories, like, they're right. They were always, when they're warning about, be careful, and you used to roll your eyes at them and think, like, oh no, this is not a problem. It was always a problem, but you just didn't see it. And what October 7th did was, in a heartbeat, like so whiplash fast. We saw all of the tinder that they had been preparing for all of these years just erupted, and how quickly. I mean, we talk about Israelis never being allowed to be victims or Jews never being allowed to be victims. The bodies of the kids from the Nova festival were still warm, and they are already seeing Israeli people as the oppressors, the aggressors. And somehow Hamas are the victims in this scenario. The ones that went into people's homes, killed them in their homes, the ones that were murdering kids who were going to a festival to dance,
Yeah.
they're the ones that are the victims and righteous in this scenario. I mean, there's no moral ambiguity. It's so clear. Like it couldn't possibly have been clearer. In fact, I tweeted the day after I saw Shani Luke on the pickup truck, and I immediately said, "That's it. It's over. Everybody will understand now. There's no question. There's no question. Everybody can see this young girl's body. Everybody can see how those men are acting. It's all out. The truth is out." I had no idea.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how they twisted the reality. Um, However, because it was so shocking, and because, and even what's happening in Iran now, to see people supporting the regime that was killing women for not covering their hair, the regime that murders people for being gay, and then they say we are progressives.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So people
Yeah.
are seeing this, right? And it's
Yeah.
causing, it's like it's bringing all of the dirt to the surface.
Crazy. Yeah.
And, so that is hopeful for me because at least it's not hidden anymore. There's light on the darkness now. And so now we know where to look. Now we know what the problems are. Now we've paid attention. $600 billion going into our universities from Qatar. What? How did this happen, right? Nobody was paying attention before. Nobody saw or understood or recognized the danger that was brewing below the surface.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that it is out now, and honestly, I have to be happy for the people of Venezuela. Of course, I'm happy for the people of Iran. Hopefully, soon I'll be happy for the people of Cuba. There is a sense now that is, reminiscent of growing up in the 90s and the USSR falling, the apartheid in South Africa falling, the Berlin Wall falling. There's this sense of like, oh, okay, we're aligning the world back again. We're valuing freedom,
Yeah.
and I kind of feel that happening now. I know that obviously it's not all rainbows and butterflies, and of course there's a lot of, ripple effects that are negative now and sad and horrible now and probably will continue to be. But again, sometimes things have to get worse before they can get better. And we're just living
Yeah.
through the part where it's maybe, it's kind of getting worse. But those gas prices will go down again and things will get better and Iran will be free and, Venezuela will be free and Cuba will be free. And I hope also that the good people of Russia and China will be free as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, this is a great message to end with. Thank you so much, Yasmine, for your time, for your knowledge, for sharing your story, for sharing everything with us today, your insights. And thank you for everyone who joined us today. Thank you for the questions. And sorry if I couldn't take all the questions. There are also a lot of praises for you in the comments, Yasmine. And people are saying they are gonna buy your box. So look forward, to maybe to some questions from them after they read it. And thank you so much once again, Yasmine, for being with us today, for waking up really early to be with us today. I really appreciate it so much.
Of course.
Everybody who's joining us today, we have a very interesting session coming up next Thursday about what's happening in the region and the new centers of power. So make sure to join. We will send the link to all of you. And thank you again for being dedicated to our seminar and joining regularly. Thank you, Yasmin, so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Delia. My pleasure. And thank you to
Yeah.
everyone at ISGAP.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.